Good morning, Sedona. It is Saturday, October 5th, 2024. And at 10 a.m. each week, you know it's time for Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks, Red Rock Country's radio magazine. We're coming to you from the gorgeous and still developing studios at KAZM Mellow Mountain Radio in West Sedona on 106.5 FM and 780 AM. And we also live stream the show at mellowmountainradio.com. So, folks, this is a radio show that each week explores all the fascinating aspects of life in Sedona and the Verde Valley and the area's intriguing personalities, two of whom I have in the studio with me today. And our shows are also transformed into podcasts, which can be heard on Apple and Amazon Podcasts, my YouTube channel, and Spotify. Our sponsor for this week's show is actually me and my other KAZM Mellow Mountain Radio show, The Patriotic Progressive, for Truth, Justice, and the Democratic Way, which is heard every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. on these same radio stations, all throughout Sedona, the Verde Valley, and beyond. On The Patriotic Progressive, we discuss the burning political issues of the day, and right now they are certainly burning, whether they be national or local politics here in Arizona, and we have a variety of compelling special guests. I'll tell you more about our sponsor later in this morning's show. So, folks, before I start anything, I just have to, and this is totally not connected to doing the show, but I had to mention this because I am extremely happy and in a great mood this morning because, you know, as you know, if you listen to the show, you know we've occasionally done shows on sports. And I hope I'm not going to annoy too many of Arizona sports fans, but I am thrilled this morning that my beloved New York Mets are going to the next round of the Major League Baseball playoffs. I won't go into how they've been doing this because it's really been crazy, as only Mets games can be. But if you hear some happiness in my voice while I have the conversation with my guests, you'll know why. Anyway, so just had to throw that out there. So I have been wanting to do a show focusing on some aspect of the religious and spiritual community here in Sedona since I launched Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks in February. And this morning I have two great guests in the studio who are connected with an emerging local church. Elizabeth LeMaster is the pastor of the newly formed Sedona United Methodist Church, which is located on 110 Indian Cliffs Road. Elizabeth brought along Susan Turner, who was the first new person to join the church and is also VP of Community Programs and Services for Accord Hospice, which is a partner of the church. But before I begin my conversation with Elizabeth and Susan, and we learn more about Sedona United Methodist Church, it's time once again for our top of the show segment, Stephen's Sedona Scene, when I tell everyone in my listening audience about a few terrific events happening over the upcoming week, and sometimes beyond, in Sedona and the Verde Valley. So 2 weeks ago, my special guests on Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks were Emerson Theater Collaborative President Camilla Ross and local actor Joan Westmoreland, who were here telling us about the upcoming production of Driving Miss Daisy at the Verde Valley School in the village of Oak Creek. Opening night was last night, and folks, with Camilla directing and Joan playing Miss Daisy, I can tell you it's a terrific presentation. And you get a chance to see it tonight at 7 p.m. or on Sunday at 2 p.m. Now, advanced ticketing is $35 for general seating and $45 for reserve seating, which you can do at www.emersontheatercollaborative.org. And by the way, the theater is Theater. Being in the theater for a long time myself, some people spell it Theatre, but they do it the more conventional way, not the fancy way. Tickets are $45 at the door at 3511 Verde Valley School Road. Now, if you'd like to partake in a special event tonight before showtime, From 5 to 6 p.m., you can attend Sights, Sounds, and Samplings of the Southern Experience. Try to say that 5 times fast. Which celebrates the Southern experience displayed through theater, music, fried chicken, hush puppies, sweet potato pie, and sweet tea. Food is supplied by John Ramagli of the Chop House Restaurant in the village of Oak Creek. Tickets for this event are $20 if you have a Driving Miss Daisy show ticket. If you don't have a show ticket, you could still attend for $45. Again, go to the website at emersontheatercollaborative.org. Now, there's been a cool event going on in Clarkdale that began last weekend and will continue on Friday and Saturday nights through Halloween night, October 31st, and that is Fright Night at the Verde Canyon Railroad Depot from 5 to 10 p.m. You can take a walk through the railroad's haunted house rail car display stationed at the Clarkdale Depot. A frightening monster squad will make all of your nightmares come true. Screeching train wheels on an oncoming locomotive headlight will greet you as you climb aboard. You can step lightly through the dimly lit train maze and enter an abyss of your worst phobias. Snake dens, spider webs, deranged clowns, spirited skeletal remains, evaporating phantoms, snarling wild animals, and a potential Donald Trump presidency. Tickets to the haunted train car are $25 per person. For more information, visit VerdeCanyonRR.com. That's VerdeCanyonRR.com. Speaking of cars, if you're a fan of classic cars, and who isn't, on October 12th, the Sedona Car Club will host its annual show at the Sedona Airport. This year's theme is American Muscle Cars, the Beginning. You can expect to see classic cars from 1964 to 1977, like the Chevy Chevelle and the Pontiac GTO. The show runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. and admission is free. For more information, go to SedonaCarClub.com. And last but not least, on the weekend of October 12th and 13th, it's time for the 33rd annual Sedona Arts Festival, Sedona's longest-running arts event, which will again be at the Sedona Red Rock High School. This year's festival features 16 new artist booths, along with the usual display of art in a variety of mediums, including painting, sculpture, and glass. There will be food trucks, and beer and wine will be available, courtesy of the Cornville-based winery D.A. Ranch. There will also be a raffle with 100% of the proceeds going to Sedona Chamber Music's Music in the Schools program. The festival will run from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday the 12th, and from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday the 13th. Admission is $12 per person and includes both days. Children 12 and under are free. For more information, visit SedonaArtsFestival.org. So, folks, I could have mentioned a number of events being hosted this month by Sedona United Methodist Church. But since this episode of Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks is featuring the church, I figured I could let my special guests tell you all about them. So I am going to tell you a little bit about them. Reverend Dr. Elizabeth LeMaster is an ordained elder in the United Methodist Church. She has been serving as a pastor and church planter for 13 years and more, and is excited to be leading Sedona UMC and launching a new presence in our town. Reverend LeMaster holds a B.S. in Legal Administration from George Mason University and a Master of Divinity and Doctor of Ministry in Church Leadership from Wesley Theological Seminary. She is a second career pastor with over 25 years' experience as a paralegal, forensic accountant, and business manager. Essentially, a jack of all trades beyond being a reverend. And I might also add that Reverend LeMaster is also a fellow member of mine with the Sedona Referrals Club, a business networking group that meets every Wednesday morning from 7 to 8:30 a.m. at the Red Rock Cafe in the village of Oak Creek. And if we have more time in the back end of the show, we'll talk a little bit more about the Sedona Referrals Club. The Reverend brought along with her a very special guest, the first new person to join the church and that is Susan Turner. Susan is currently the Vice President of Community Programs and Services for Accord Hospice and Palliative Care, overseeing outreach events and building relations at their 3 locations, one in Sedona, one in Show Low, Arizona, and one in Kansas. She has spent most of her career working in the nonprofit world in a leadership role, and the last 13 years with hospice, focusing on fundraising, building relationships, and educating others on the important decisions, topics, and responsibilities that often arise at the end of life. Susan has a passion for educating the underserved and marginalized populations, and her work is inspired by unique ways to reach those members of our communities, often partnering with other organizations, including Hospice Foundation of America. 2 very impressive women. Ladies, welcome to Sedona Life with Steve and Hanks.
Thanks for having us.
It's great.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you. I'm really glad you came. And Susan, you're like an added attraction.
Oh, I love being an added attraction.
The plan was to give Elizabeth the whole hour, but we have you
I'll
too.
interject once in a while.
There you go. So, Elizabeth, before we get into the beginnings and evolution of this church and what it's all about, since I just went through some of the events coming up in our area over the next couple of weeks, can you fill in the audience about the first 2 October events you have at the church, one of them today, and then later in the show we'll get into the big fall festival later in the month?
Sure. So today we are actually partnering with Accord Hospice. Because of Susan and our relationship, we were able to build a relationship with Accord Hospice. And today we are hosting Camp SOAR, which is a camp for children, kids experiencing grief. So it's a day camp that'll be held. It's being held on the campus of the church.
Yeah. Is there any particular reason why you're doing that now, or it's just the way, the schedule broke and...
That's when they told me they wanted to do it. So
Susan said.
Susan said.
We provide the camp annually.
Okay.
One of our passions is to support the community and those children that are coping with loss. Kids are often the forgotten people because they seem so resilient in facing a death or a divorce or incarceration of someone they love. So this is one of those things we do annually. And when Elizabeth and I met, she was gracious. That's part of her background, is to serve people that are dealing with grief. So it was a perfect match.
That's fantastic work that you're doing, along with everything else that I've seen that you're doing at Sedona United Methodist Church. So Elizabeth, on the first day, God said, ... So tell our listeners about where you came from and how this new church came about.
So I was actually working back east in the Baltimore-Washington Conference, United Methodist. We have conferences. And my husband and I had decided that we wanted to live in Arizona. Mm-hmm. We traveled out here, and we decided we wanted to move here rather than waiting to retire. And I had to pray over that a little bit because that was a little sooner than we had planned. And I really felt that God was calling me to start a new church. That's one of the things I do as a church planter. Start a new church in Sedona. And so I reached out to the conference, Desert Southwest Conference here in Arizona. And I said, hey, God's calling me to plant a new church in Sedona. And in the United Methodist Church, the bishop tells you where you work, so you don't necessarily just get to say. And they said, well, that's great, but we have a church in Sedona right now, and would you come and start what's called a Fresh Expression in Chino Valley, which I was like, that's great, I'll do that. So we moved to Chino Valley, which is an hour from Sedona, much closer than Baltimore, Maryland, so I was perfectly happy. And then in November, they called me up and said, there's been some disruption at the church, and a large portion of the congregation has left. And we would like you to come in as an interim pastor.
And when did all this happen?
That was November 9 was my first day.
Oh, wow.
Sedona.
So it's pretty, you're not even there a year yet. Almost a
No,
year.
it happened really fast and like out of left field. I was blindsided.
So what kind of congregation were you starting with once you came in? And did you have to start completely from scratch?
Well, I had 5 people.
Wow.
So that's great. 5 people.
What did they have before they split?
I'd say maybe 50 to 60 regular in worship. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I had 5, and that was fine. And early on, in like just my first week, the people who stayed came and wanted to be sure that I knew that they wanted to have an affirming and inclusive presence, that they wanted to focus on social justice and equity, and it was very important to them that that's how we built our foundation going forward. So,
right.
Which was perfect, because that's what I'm all about.
Yeah, I'm especially interested in you expanding on the social justice part, because back in New York, my wife B and I, who on this show we call the Woman Warrior, I just have to get that in. I'm actually Jewish, and my wife was Protestant, but she converted to Judaism about 20 years ago, and as soon as she converted, they made her president of the temple. And,
nice.
And it was a Reformed temple. That's what happens when you convert. You
right.
know? And she's now way more Jewish than I am. I admit that. But the reason I bring that up is that temple, which was the oldest Reformed temple, was in Brooklyn, New York. And they had a very, very strong and active social justice part of that synagogue. So I'm curious about the different things you're going to do. I assume some of them are included in these things you're doing in October, but how do you see the definition of social justice for your church?
So for our church, it's about equity, right? It's not just one particular group of people. It is making sure, and it's also not about equality, it's about equity, so that everybody has the same access to things, to resources, to means of living, that we need to be in spaces where we're advocating for justice, where we're working to change laws, maybe sometimes where we're working to bring things to the community. For Sedona, there's a huge homeless population here, and I think that's a space that the church needs to be in. I'm new to Sedona, so I'm not the expert to speak to how that should be solved.
Right.
But I definitely think the church should be in conversation with the community about that.
Yeah, you know, when any organization that's involved in social justice issues, invariably there's going to be sort of a cross connection with politics.
Yes.
And people who are for or against whatever you're trying to do in the social justice atmosphere. So how do you see navigating that in this community and trying to do your social justice without it being overtly political, or maybe you don't mind it being overtly political?
I don't think it's overtly political, because we're just following Jesus and doing what Jesus did, living like Jesus did, which was always, Jesus was always with the outcast, the ones who were the poorest of society. I always say, and I'll go on record now publicly saying, I'm sure Jesus was a socialist.
Yep.
Right? I mean, so there's lots of times when even you preach the gospel, right? Care for the immigrant, visit the prisoner, take care of the sick. And what you hear back from the congregation is, Pastor, we don't like it when you get political. But I'm like, I'm literally quoting Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's what we're called to. If that sounds political to people, I can't do anything about that. But biblically, that's what we're called to do.
Well, based on what you just said, I'm going to extrapolate who you may be supporting in the presidential election, but we won't go there. Although I'm sure that you're not going to have your congregation use the Donald Trump Bible. I would assume that's.
I would assume that probably won't happen.
Sorry. So Susan, I want to bring you into this. So I'm calling the theme for this show because I'm a baseball guy. If you build a church, they will come. Which kind of applies to what Elizabeth is trying to do here. And the slogan of Sedona United Methodist Church is open hearts, open minds, open doors. Well, the church was built, and you came, and the hearts, minds, and doors obviously opened for you as the first new member. So what motivated you to join this church?
Gosh, I think you just heard it. I mean, what Elizabeth is saying is just something that I believe in. I believe in inclusivity, and although there are some wonderful churches in this community, we're from Michigan, and we've been here about 8 years and we hadn't found our church home. And I still consider my Presbyterian church in Tecumseh, Michigan, my home church, because they are inclusive and they welcome everybody. And we have a family. My family is very diverse and very wonderful. And I want all of them to be welcome wherever we are, whether they ever visit Sedona or not. And Elizabeth and we met. I actually knocked on the door because I knew she was new in town and I wanted to say hello and introduce myself. And we got into a conversation, and I would call her my friend now also, not just my pastor. And I am truly looking forward to seeing what happens. It's just something that it's exciting. And, when she starts talking about the different things that are going to take place there, what I take from that is that she's just open to whatever will support our community and bring people together, and the events that she'll talk about. But it's more than that. And I think that as we listen to her, you'll understand that.
Yeah. Elizabeth, how lucky is it to have you hit the jackpot with your first new member walking through the
100%.
door? Oh, my
yes.
God. I mean, everybody would want that if they were trying to build something, having somebody
thanks.
like Susan. and I just met her, and I'm already making that leap. So...
Yeah, I'm a relationship builder in what I do and
Sure.
always have been. When you're a development director or philanthropy or whatever, however you want to say it, that's what you do. One thing that I learned, though, is you do it for the right reasons and you believe in what you do, or you're not going to be successful. Right. But extending that into just building relationships for yourself and your family, this is a relationship I wanted to be in. Yeah. Not only for what the church will offer, not just myself, but my husband and my family, but also with Elizabeth.
Right.
And I am committed to that.
What made you move to Sedona?
Oh gosh,
you saw the Red Rocks and you were sold. Right? Kind of.
We're hikers.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And I have been coming to Arizona since I was a senior in high school, and not necessarily to Sedona. But then I did venture north and found this beautiful city and just fell in love with it and visited often. And then when I got married 13 years ago to my wonderful husband, we came here on our honeymoon. He had never been here, and he said, wow, right? So we kind of similar to what Elizabeth talks about with her and Bart. We really just, we bought a place here to come back and forth, and we were coming so often, and our youngest child went to college. And I said, okay, they're all gone. Why are we waiting to retire here? Right. And so I got a job offer. I came out here, and then 3 months later, Accord Hospice found me, and I came into a position of being with this amazing hospice, and just feel very fortunate and lucky.
Where is the hospice located?
We're actually right down the road on 89A in Sedona, and then as you mentioned, we have one in Show Low, and then one in Manhattan, Kansas. I always say Manhattan, then I go Kansas.
Right.
So, but all three of them are phenomenal. All have their own stories. White Mountains is where they started.
Right.
So we are going to be celebrating in Sedona. Next year will be our 10th year here.
Oh, wow.
And I've had just such a great experience with this community. But, we're all about the serving those patients and their families. And, that's just, some people call it say it's a calling. I just say it's a privilege.
Yeah. Well, I mean... It's just wonderful that you're both devoted to doing what you do for other people. I mean, that's what it's all about, and that's what we need in this society more of right now. So we're gonna get back to talking about what the church is up to the rest of the month and more. I want to give my sponsor a little shout out, especially since it's me.
Obviously, could we shout out too?
Exactly. So our sponsor this week, and maybe next week too, it depends on whether I can find someone to actually buy a sponsorship, happens to be my other KAZM Mellow Mountain Radio show that some of you out there might have heard during the 8 to 9 a.m. hour earlier this morning. I'm going to read this sponsor spot as if someone other than me is placing it. So here we go. Currently the host of the general interest lifestyle show, Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on KAZM Mellow Mountain Radio in Sedona, Arizona, Stephen now brings his passionate opinions about the local, regional, and national political landscapes to 106.5 FM and 780 AM and nationwide through podcast versions of his live show. With a background in political science and as a longtime magazine journalist, political essayist, and activist for Democratic candidates and progressive causes, Stephen discusses the fundamental political issues of our time with compelling expert guests from Sedona, other areas of Arizona, and around the country. So tune in every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. to the Patriotic Progressive for truth, justice, and the democratic way. The end. Now back to the show. So Elizabeth, the church is holding a big event on Sunday, October 27th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. that you're calling Fall Festival and Art Fair. So just run through the details of that so you can get as many people as possible coming over that day.
Sure. So it's going to be a full day, all kinds of things happening. At 10 a.m., we have what we call a preview worship because we're a new church start. We're not holding regular worship right now, so we'll have several preview worships. This one will be outside. So we have preview worship at 10. From 11 to 12, you can bring your pet for a pet blessing, and I would love that. My goal in life is to have a congregation of dogs, and so I think this could start. But you can bring any pet. I have blessed snakes, reptiles, lizards, cats, goats, alpacas. I love alpacas. If you have one, bring your alpaca. But any pets between 11 and 12, come on out. I'd be happy to bless them. From noon to 4 is trunk or treat. So this is a great day for the family to come out. There'll be stuff for the kids. There's also artists and crafters that we will have in one of the buildings on our campus, so you can purchase art. I know we're having crystals, we're having possibly some jewelry, some beautiful things. So all kinds of great things to do.
If somebody wants to be a crafts presenter, how do they go about that? Is there a fee to buy a booth?
There is. It's $30 to have a space, and then 10% of your profits for the day. And you can go to our website, sedonaumc.org. There's a form on there to fill out. Space is limited. This is our first time doing this, so we kind of limited so we can make sure everything's really perfect. So space is limited, but we still do have space. Just go to our website, get the form on there, and you can fill that out and submit it.
Okay, and tell us about the donations you're trying to get in your partnership with the Sedona Food Bank.
So our partnership with Sedona Food Bank is called SAGAP. It's Sedona Area Gap Assistance Program. So we collect things that fill the gap between food and what people really need. We're collecting items that day, and actually we have boxes all over town. I'm sure you've seen them. Collecting items. The things we collect are toilet paper, bar soap, deodorant, toothpaste and toothbrushes, floss, shampoo and conditioner, diapers, baby wipes, feminine hygiene products, paper towels, dish soap, laundry detergent, things like that. You can bring them to the festival or drop them into one of the boxes around town.
So, Susan, what's your role going to be that day?
For this event, I'm going to be in Europe that time. Yeah. However,
convenient.
I'm hoping that you'd speak a little bit about the vendors that will do the trunk or treat part, because you can be there to do that, right?
Hand out candy. If you would like
and
to
I think our organization would want to do that.
Oh, perfect.
So please speak of that.
If you personally would like to decorate the trunk of your car and hand out candy, or if your organization would like to send a representative, absolutely. We're going to have that out in the parking lot in front of the church. So again, just go to the website. Everything's on the website, how to email us or contact us and let us know. Will you signed up?
That sounds great.
Doesn't it sound great?
Yeah.
I love these kind of events. It brings people together in the most beautiful time of the year, in my opinion.
Yes.
The fall, right?
Yeah, and the end of October in
exactly.
Sedona. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so I am looking forward to hearing about it.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, you're also launching a program that looks really fascinating to me called the Spiritual Collective, an incubator for wellness and community. Has that actually started yet, or is it in the planning stages? And what's that all going to be about?
I would say it's in the formation stages. Mm-hmm. We needed some sprucing up of the building, some renovation, getting everything ready to go. What that is, part of church planting is just listening to the community. What do people need? Mm-hmm. Where are spaces we need to be in? And one of the things that kept presenting itself is Sedona's very expensive. And so to have a space and a way to offer services to people at a discounted rate, to offer space for maybe people who are starting their business and they want a way to pick up clientele, to meet people in a space that doesn't have astronomical rent, right? So we have yoga. Actually, right now we have yoga at 4 p.m. on Sundays.
My next door neighbor, who was over recently, was very impressed with the notion that there was going to be yoga at this church.
Yes,
that she now may want to join.
Yes. So we have, yoga is going well. We offer yoga, restorative yoga, so it's easy at 4 p.m. on Sundays, and people can come by and check it out.
And you found somebody locally to teach that class, or are you teaching it?
Actually, no, I'm not teaching it. Yeah. I do go to it every week, though.
There you go.
Our church administrator is also a yoga instructor, so she teaches it for us every week.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
and it's a beautiful space.
Yeah.
I mean, you've really made it beautiful.
So we have other, the idea is that we would have people who could be in the building so the yoga class is by donation, which allows it, more people to participate, right? And so I'm working on forming partnerships with people who have their businesses who would be willing to be in the church and maybe give, I'm going to offer 3 free massages a month, or I'm going to offer an experience of what I do for people to experience it without. I don't think things like massage or yoga should be only for rich people. Mm-hmm, right? Absolutely. It should be, these are like healthcare things, they're wellness things. Mm-hmm. They're things that feed our soul. We're having a meditation room, so we could have workshops or meditation retreats on campus. Another thing we're doing, we have a grief group that meets on Wednesdays at 3:00, which is open to the public. And so the grief group, we've had yoga, made use of the yoga studio to have yoga for grief and healing with them. We're taking them to Sedona Wolf Sanctuary in a couple weeks as another experience. So kind of allowing people to experience things that maybe they wouldn't be able to on their own.
Right. Susan, have you kind of, based on the way you were talking about the church earlier, have you become kind of like the de facto marketing director? Or?
I don't know if I have an official title. I think what is so great about Elizabeth is she's open to meeting new people.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things that we've been not even working on, it's just come about naturally as I'll meet someone or I know someone, I'm like, oh my gosh, you have to meet Elizabeth. And talking about the spiritual collective, that drew me in, right? Because I think it's so important that your church is someplace that anyone feels comfortable just walking into. So often that can be not the truth. And I love the spiritual collective. One of the things that we've talked about, kicked around, we haven't done anything definitive about is, hospice is all about educating, dispelling the myths because people are afraid, but also about planning and putting your advanced care directives in writing. And we do wonderful educational pieces on that. So I see ourselves in a space there offering those type of educational classes to a degree. And I think people look for information, don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be the spiritual collective, right? I mean, how can you go wrong?
I know, really.
Right?
Yeah. And there's one other thing in your handouts that I saw that caught my eye was this thing you're calling Circles of Discovery.
Yes.
And what really caught my eye was Coffee with the Pastor.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So the Circles of Discovery are basically small groups because, again, since we're not having regular worship, this is how I connect people in. So the first stop would be Coffee with the Pastor. You can, again, if you go on our website, sedonaumc.org, there's information on there of how to contact me, and you can make an appointment, and I will meet you at Oak Creek Espresso. And I do not drink coffee. You don't have to drink coffee. I have tea and a muffin. But it's just a time to, I want it to be easy, right? Not threatening. It's awkward and weird to maybe walk into a church building or to come to a worship service. Maybe you just want to know a little bit more about what's going on and where we stand.
That's a great idea for a different kind of outreach.
Yeah, just people. That one-on-one with the pastor for whatever you want to talk to me about. It doesn't even have to be the church. If you have a problem you want to talk to me about, or a business you want to talk to me about, things like that. And then what I consider like the second level is a connecting group. And so that's a group where it's really about fellowship. Susan and I have talked about starting, I think we have about 10 people now that want to start a new group that we're not quite to growing, which would be a Bible study group, but we're definitely interested and we want to be involved. So it's just kind of like-minded people getting together and what can we do on behalf of the church? How can we help grow the church? And then the growing group is Bible study. We generally meet on Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. We're not meeting right now because we have 2 preview worships in October.
Right.
That will resume at some point. So different ways to connect depending on where you are in your spiritual journey.
Gotcha. So given the demographic in Sedona, an older population, not a lot of children.
Right.
Are there any specific challenges to trying to grow a church in that environment, or is it pretty much the same approach no matter what the population might be?
I think you have to know your demographic and know your audience. Lots of times people get stuck on, we have to have young families, we have to have young children. That's great. Of course you want that. And I have, I'm partnering with Mountain View Church in Cottonwood because a lot of the families that are in and around Sedona are in Cottonwood or Camp Verde. So we're making plans for that. But there's nothing wrong with being a retirement church because people retire every day. So it's not like you're just going to age out and not have anybody. There's always new people moving to the area that are retired, that are looking for a church and a way to connect. So for here, that's what we do. I mean, that's what we build on.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the partnership that you have with that particular church. Because I was going to ask you, like, what connections have you been able to make and interactions have you been able to make with other religious leaders, whether it's other Christian communities or the synagogue? How has that gone so far? So
that's going very well. We actually have an interfaith group that is currently planning a Thanksgiving service, which is going to be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. I wish I knew that date right off the top of my head. But the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, we will be having a Thanksgiving service, an interfaith Thanksgiving service at Church of the Red Rocks at 7 p.m. In that group is Church of the Red Rocks, Christ Lutheran Church, Sedona United Methodist, St. John Vianney Catholic Church. I'm going to leave people out and get in trouble.
Does it pretty much cover all of the local congregations?
No, there's about 5 or 6 churches. St. Andrew's Episcopal. And then we have the Native American community represented, and we have a Baha'i community represented, and we have, of course, Rabbi Elisha from the Sedona Synagogue. So
that's great.
Rabbi Elisha was actually instrumental in getting us all together. And yeah, that's been a great group because we're all like-minded, social justice, wanting to do good things for the community.
Yeah, the synagogue has a pretty active social justice component. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about religion in this way. As I said before, I'm Jewish, but I also consider myself an atheist.
Okay.
I'm like a lot of Jews from my generation. I'm more of a cultural Jew. Celebrate the holidays. I go to synagogue on the holidays. That's the way a lot of more Reformed Judaism people are. But I still have a problem with the whole God concept. Is a church like yours welcoming to people like that? I mean, do people that consider themselves atheists or agnostic even approach coming to a church just to find out if they're on the right path, or if you know where I'm going with this?
I can't speak to other churches, but I'd say my church is the perfect church for that.
I had a feeling you would say that.
Me too.
One of the things about United Methodist beliefs are that God loves everybody unconditionally, no matter that person's relationship with God.
Right.
So I love that I can always say, whether you believe in God or not, God loves you. It's all about conversation. I do not think that the United Methodist Church knows everything about God or has, the only right way. Mm-hmm. I think that God is much bigger than that. Father Richard Rohr says if you can wrap your brain around it, it is not God. So God's not necessarily meant to be something to be understood. So I respect all other religions because I don't think God is narrow. Mm-hmm. And I also think my heart and the people that I'm most drawn to are the people who are the furthest away from God. Not to, I'm always like, I'm not going to beat people over the head with Jesus, but God has helped me in very dark times in my life mm-hmm. when God was the only source that I had for help. And I wouldn't want anyone to have a life without that.
Right.
So I'm going to respect people where they are. For Sedona United Methodist Church, that's one of our themes. We meet people where they are. We come into relationship with that person, but not in a transactional way. We want to love you. We want to help you. If you want to come to church, that's great. But if you don't, we're still going to love you and support you.
Yeah, Susan, if you can talk about this, has been your evolution or background in religion and your belief system, and how does that connect with what Elizabeth's doing?
I've never been asked that, so that's a question, right? I grew up in the Presbyterian Church. Mm-hmm. I had, I think, a point in my life when I needed more of this theatrical mm-hmm. environment when I was in my early 20s, then moved back to a more traditional, but realized because my beliefs are very liberal. I grew up very liberal. I was taught love is love, and that really, centers me. Mm-hmm. So I knew later on in life when I joined with a family that could be persecuted in ways that I needed to kind of look at what I wanted out of a church home. I'm one of those people that feels like I do need to be centered with a church home. Right. Doesn't mean I go every Sunday. It doesn't mean that, that I'm this, I don't know how to put that, but, I just believe that I need to have that center base. Right. But I won't settle. And I think I mentioned it earlier, all my family members need to be welcome wherever I go. And that's why I've struggled in the last decade, because I haven't been able to find that place here. And all that Elizabeth was talking about, it resonates with me mm-hmm. because I believe the same. God loves you, but I'm not going to judge what you believe or what your faith is like, because I wouldn't want you to do that to me or to someone I love. So I don't even know if that's a good answer, because I've never been asked that. Well, but that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay. Well, listening to what you're saying, it actually gives me a segue into something I wasn't planning on bringing up. And if this is a touchy subject, let me know, and you can say I'll pass. But one of the things that's really troubling me politically these days is the growth of Christian nationalism in the country. Mm-hmm. I think with white supremacy, that those are the two biggest threats yes. to what's going on. Yes. How do you wrap your head, Elizabeth, and Susan, you can answer this too, around the whole Christian nationalism, evangelical movement at the way it is today?
So the church has to stand up against this Christian nationalism. It's never meant to be the same thing. this country was founded on freedom of religion, not on being a Christian nation. And I think we've got far afield of that. I think that the loudest voices now for the church, and I'm using my air quotes, and for Christianity are the most harmful voices.
Yeah.
And for me, doing this work here in Sedona, I cannot tell you how often I have sat with someone who, through tears, is telling me, oh my gosh, this is such a gift to me to find this church, because the church I was going to told me I was not good enough, told me I was going to be judged by God, told me all these things. And we just have to stand in that space and say, this is not right. This is not who we're meant to be. It's not who we are. And it is damaging people. This is the whole, we've got all these people hurt by the church. You get on TikTok and you scroll, it is person after person after person deconstructing religion because they've been hurt. They say by the church, but what they've been hurt by is this Christian nationalism concept.
Right. Susan, you have any thoughts on this?
Gosh.
Do we have another hour for the show?
I know, and I don't want to get too far into it. It becomes so personal, right? That I try to stay in my lane and speak only as a mom.
Yeah,
and that's where it comes from for me. So
but one of the sad things about this whole thing is that there are millions of moms in this country who are big Christian nationalists. They have organizations, and they're the ones that are out there banning books in libraries. I mean, it's kind of really upsetting.
It is upsetting, and that's why it gets very personal. Yeah. You know, coming from that perspective of a mom, and by now, I haven't said it straight out, but I have a trans daughter, and I have a daughter who's queer, and so I'm hit with a lot at different times, obviously, and so many people can relate to that. So I try to not overreact, and help people understand that when you raise children and you love them, and I believe that we love our children, right, with all our heart, and you send them to school and you worry about if they're going to eat their lunch, and you worry about if they're going to get enough exercise, or if they're going to understand their schoolwork or whatever. I worry about my children making it through the day.
Yeah, yeah.
If they step into the wrong building, will they be shot? If someone finds out that, my daughter is trans, how will they react? I worry about
How old is your trans daughter?
She is 37.
Wow.
Yeah.
You barely look over 37.
What did you say? I didn't hear what you said.
You barely look over.
I'm just kidding.
This is how I get in good with women all the time.
Exactly. I was just going to, let's go on that tangent. No. And I to worry about your child's safety every day makes you it makes you different. It makes you, and that's why I say that I have to step back when I hear the negative insults, and you don't know who we are. You don't know how fabulous my children are, and you're looking at them through one lens, and that's very hard to do as a parent. So it becomes very personal, I think is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. You're kind of inspired. I've been thinking for a while about, on my political show, or even on Sedona Life, doing a show about the transsexual situation, for lack of a better word. And this is kind of inspiring me to cover that.
Well, and there's a great movie that just came out, Will and Harper, that I suggest everybody watch. Will Ferrell and his friend Harper.
Yes.
It's phenomenal.
Yes.
And I will say that my husband and I watched it, and it brought up conversation that we should all be having, even though we're entrenched in it every day. And I think I wish for people to be more open, but we're in a society that's so segmented. And so so I'm
330 million people. It's hard for everybody to get on the same page.
Right.
About anything.
Yeah.
So.
And also, I think you said the Christian nationalism goes hand in hand with white supremacy.
Yeah.
And we can't, it's also people of color who were erasing history,
right.
book banning, not teaching things in school.
Exactly.
And they have the same issue of, is my child going to come home tonight?
Yeah, and
that's why social justice and not just one issue is so important.
Right.
A few weeks ago, I had on my Patriotic Progressive show a woman named Andra Watkins, who grew up in the evangelical church in South Carolina, really hardcore, just totally immersed. The family was, and something eventually clicked in her when she got to be in her late teens, early 20s, and she gradually got out of it. Now she has a Substack newsletter, which is basically talking about the threat that the Right Wing's Project 2025 is posing.
Yes.
But one of the reasons why she decided to take this project on was as she was reading Project 2025, she read how immersed Christian nationalism was in a lot of the programs that they were proposing. So, it's look. I think it's something that we just have to deal with right now, and maybe the election will handle that. So, in the limited time we have left, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Referrals Club.
Yes.
Because since we're both members, I think I should give them a little love. So when you joined the club, and you joined when I was the president for a year, I was really skeptical, not about you, but about what benefit you could get out of it. Because the Referrals Club with businesses networking is all about, people referring
right.
to you and you referring to them. And I wasn't sure how it would work with the church. So you've been in it for a few months. How do you find it working for you?
I think it's great. First of all, it gives me a place to find if I need work done at church. I've had someone from the club do painting, do our internet,
printing,
do pest control. So there's somebody that I know that I'm
right.
going to see every
exactly.
week, right? There's that. But also the networking, like Susan said, we joke that she's my agent. Connecting me with other organizations, with people is... For a church start, it's not like a regular church. A referral is not going to be sending me a member. It's like, connect me with a community organization to talk to. How can our church support that organization? Connect me with somebody who's looking to start. There's a group looking to start a mental health coalition. And so one of the club members connected me with those people. That's super beneficial for me.
Yeah, so just to let people know, and we've done a number of shows with members of the Referrals Club on Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks. This, as I mentioned before, it's weekly meetings at Red Rock Cafe in the village of Oak Creek, right next to Clark's Market. It's one business per category. So now that Elizabeth has the church category wrapped up, if you are running a church, don't even bother to come in. And it's really growing. I mean, they had a large membership before the pandemic, and then obviously it went down. Now it's building back up again. So there are now over 20 members in the club, and as Elizabeth said, it's really been beneficial for her making connections, and she's been a terrific member. Everybody over there loves her. What's not to love? You're listening to her on the radio. So last thoughts. We're getting close to the end of the show. So Susan, what are you hoping going forward to do with the church, to get out of the church? Goals that you have as a parishioner to see it? Just any thoughts along those lines?
Well, I certainly hope it grows and thrives, and I guess I'm looking at it as more as what I can do and to help that. And that's kind of been our thought process. They've been so gracious, to host our Camp SOAR, and we have another event coming up called Lights of Remembrance, where anybody in the community comes and we light a tree in honor of those that that you've lost, and that tree stays lit throughout the holiday seasons. That's coming up. So yes, they're providing opportunities, for people to come in, but also what can I do for them?
Great. Elizabeth, how does a Sunday, I assume your services are Sunday.
Yes.
How does a Sunday service work? What's the dynamic of a Sunday service at your church?
So this is the beauty of, if people join now, they get to have a say in that, because that's why we're doing preview worship.
That sounds like a commercial.
It did, didn't it? Started
Right?
out
Join
that way.
now, and you can
join
be...
now,
It's
and
2 for the
you
price
get
of
in
one.
on the ground floor. So the service that we're having on October 13 at 10 a.m.
That's my birthday, by the way.
Oh, well, then you should come.
And we'll celebrate.
Yes, you should come and we'll celebrate.
Oh, wow.
That's going to be a traditional service, so it's in the sanctuary with, I would say, maybe not totally traditional, mixed kind of music. The one at the festival on the 27th is outside. It'll have contemporary worship music. I am planning a jazz brunch worship in November.
Oh, wow.
So I'm super excited about that. I really want that one to take off. But after each worship, we ask the people there, what did you think of this? What did you really like that we should continue to do? What, you're like, I don't need that. And so it's really getting formed by what the community wants. So yeah, get in now.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Join
it
now.
sounds like you're super progressive, which kind of makes you the official church of the Patriotic Progressive
Yes,
Show.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. Is there anything? Just tell us really quick as we get close to the end about the important things coming up this month. Just
So
one more
the
time.
important thing
and
coming up.
how people can contact you.
Okay. You can always contact us at our website, Sedona UMC, which is United Methodist Church, SedonaUMC.org. All the info's on there. My email, I think my cell phone's even on there. And there's buttons to click for. Also to give. If you'd like to support us,
Okay,
you can give
that's great.
online. So Sunday, October 13 at 10 a.m., preview worship and an information session. So there's time to ask questions and give feedback. Sunday, October 24, Fall Festival, 10 to 4. 10 worship, 11 o'clock blessing of the pets, 12 to 4 trunk or treat. Local artists and crafts will be there. Every Wednesday at 3 p.m. we have grief support group. All are welcome to come to that. We have the ongoing circles of discovery. Go to the website, hit me up. I'd love to have coffee with you. Yoga at 4 p.m. on Sunday. And we have AA group that meets there Saturdays at 8 a.m.
And I just want to correct one thing. You
Yes.
said Sunday, October 24th. And it's the 27th, yes?
Yes, sorry.
I'm an editor. I can even catch this.
But I wrote
verbally.
24.
Verbally, I
in
was
my
gonna say,
notes.
that's pretty
Yep,
good.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and by the way, the church is on 110 Indian Cliffs Road in Sedona, Arizona. Well, that's all the time we have for the show today. I want to deeply thank my special guest, Reverend Elizabeth LeMaster of the Sedona United Methodist Church, and one of her first new members, who I'm really pleased to meet,
Thank you.
Susan Turner. You've both
mutual.
been terrific. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
And thanks, as always, to my tremendous producer in the booth, Ryan Thompson, who, after the show, as always, will send me the audio that we transform into a podcast version of Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks that you can listen to anytime on Apple and Amazon Podcasts, YouTube on my channel, and Spotify. You can also find Sedona Life with Stephen Hanks on Facebook. And if you can, email me with comments and questions to Stephen at mellowmountainradio.com. And I'll send both of you podcast
Please
links.
do. Thank you.
Next Saturday, I will be on vacation, but from 10 to 11 a.m. on this show, since it's hiking season, we will be replaying the past show from May that we did with members of the Sedona Westerners Club. And if you're into Democratic politics, whether local or national, I hope you tune into my other KAZM, Mellow Mountain Radio show, The Patriotic Progressive, which airs every Saturday morning from 8 to 9 a.m. and is also live streamed on the station website and on the podcast platforms I mentioned earlier. But for now, I thank you all for listening to Red Rock Country's Radio Magazine. Have a great week, everyone.
On the road to Sedona, in my heart the only way I know. On the road to Sedona,